Hi, it's Duke. So, before this video starts, I want to give a quick warning for potential spoilers. I'm going to be pretty heavily discussing a particular leak that happened on Brie Grace's website. If you know what I'm talking about or you don't care about spoilers, then feel free to stick around, but if you do care, then maybe you should click off the video. Also, I'm going to assume you're already familiar with Centersides. I'm not going to be explaining it. If you haven't seen the show before, it's just on YouTube. You can go watch that instead of this if you want. That said, we're going to start with the basic stuff. Orange side theory is basically the same thing as a rainbow theory. And rainbow theory is the theory that there's one side for each color of the rainbow. Red, orange, yellow, green, teal / light blue depending on who you ask, blue, and purple. The theory got popular in the beginning of season 2 when the characters got their updated outfits. It was also aided by this poster that I'm showing on screen now. After Janice was introduced into the show, it had basically become accepted as fact by the fandom, and there really isn't any sort of evidence against it. So yeah. Orange side theory is just the idea that we have one more side to introduce, and he's going to be repping the color orange. There's a lot of evidence for this, and I'm going to be discussing said evidence and giving you my thoughts. We're going to start with the evidence for the orange side, who I'm just going to refer to as orange for simplicity, existing at all. In the episode Accepting Anxiety Part 2, Roman says this line.
Yeah, and you are nothing compared to the others.
This was our first hit at there being more characters, but honestly, from what I remember, nobody really gave a shit about this reveal. Fans were way more excited about the reveal of Virgil's name, I guess. We also have this from Virgil in Selfishness versus Selflessness.
Do not allow him or any of his friends to stick around that long ever again.
Virgil basically confirms with this line there are multiple other sides Thomas doesn't know about yet. Many fans agree that if it was just Remus, Virgil wouldn't have used the word friends. So yeah, multiple sides are confirmed. Next up we have this shirt I'm showing on screen. This is probably my favorite piece of merch from the series ever, just for the buzz it caused. When it dropped, the fandom went fucking insane analyzing it, myself included. I spent way too much time researching Lantainias and their symbolic and historical meaning. From various sources, Lantainias, specifically orange ones, can mean passion and intensity, renewal, transformation, and rebirth. More on this later. And rigor, or severity. It's an invasive species that's known to prevent other plants from growing. It's toxic to livestock, but does attract butterflies and birds. It has medicinal properties, and most interestingly, it has some resistance to fire. This shirt was the first real evidence we got for the rainbow theory beyond the character designs in the poster, which honestly could have meant nothing. All the other flowers have very heavy symbolism relating to the characters and Centersides, so we can safely assume that the Lantania flower is relevant in the same way. Put a pin in that. I'll talk about it more later. Next, we have SVS Redux, where we get several pieces of evidence for orange. Starting with the biggest, the thumbnail, it shows a character select screen with all the sides, plus a 7th box that's just an outline of Thomas. Well, actually, I think this is an outline of Roman, but 1, it's too pixelated to really tell, and 2, I don't think who the outline is really that important. I think it's just whoever had the most generic silhouette. But anyway, most people look at this as immediate confirmation that we have one more side to be revealed. Also, a fun note, I remember seeing this thumbnail when the episode dropped, and I was so sure we were going to get orange revealed in that video. In the actual episode itself, we have this Streets of Rage parody. Up here in the corner, we have a life counter, and what is probably a point counter. First, the life counter. The screen says Thomas equals 8, which people usually assume to mean all 7 of the potential sides, plus Thomas himself. There are a few people back in the day who thought this meant that there was going to be 8 sides instead, but if true, this is the only evidence we have for it. Second, we have the point counter. The number 07734 is commonly known to spell out hello when typed into a calculator. This and the fact that the number is orange is enough to convince people that this is Orange sort of introducing himself to the audience. Now I'm going to finally bring up the Brie Grace website shaped elephant in the room. Again, if you're worried about leak related spoilers, you should leave. Okay, so we have this. It's clearly the design for the sweaters and sweatpants and merch we got in a while ago, and oh, what's this? Why, is that an orange that I spy? And if we zoom in, is that a phoenix emblem? So yeah, this is undoubtedly the biggest proof we have for this character existing. I've seen someone online say that Brig Grace herself said this wasn't anything and that she just drew it up for fun, but one, I tried digging through her social media and I couldn't find any posts that said this, so either I'm stupid or if a post about this did exist, it's gone now. Two, that honestly feels really unlikely to me. Why would you draw up merch for a character that you don't know anything about and then include it in the lineup of real merch that was produced? 3. The particular person I saw saying this has been known to be really unreliable and spreads a lot of rumors in this community, so I do believe that this is a real merch design for a real character. Between the obvious flame and wing design on the pants here and the blurry bird shape at the top of the emblem, it's pretty safe to assume this is meant to be a phoenix design. There is a little blob at the bottom of the emblem I believe is meant to be flame. So, Orange's emblem is a phoenix. Cool. I'll talk about this more in a bit, but for now I want to move on to supplementary evidence of Orange existing. There isn't much, so I'll be fast. 1. The orange light when Thomas sings the word small in the Trying Too Hard music video. This video isn't directly related to Sandersize, but it does heavily allude to it, and I have done a lot of speculation. 2. The orange eyes in the anime opening video. I'll talk about this more later, but I believe the implication is that the orange eyes are meant to suggest another side and not just Logan when he has the orange eye flash. Okay, so what does he represent, and what might his role in the story be? I'll talk more about Logan later, but for now, I obviously need to mention working through intrusive thoughts when he yelled at Remus and his eyes flashed orange. You know the one I'm talking about.
Stop ignoring me!
I would honestly be very surprised if after this moment, Orange ended up being something like, I don't know, sunshine and happiness. It's Logan getting angry, yelling, and his eyes flashing orange. What else are you supposed to take away from this scene? It's rage, guys. Orange is rage. Well, wrath, anger, rage. The exact word doesn't actually matter. They all mean essentially the same thing. Though I do personally like the term wrath over the others because of the potential religious connotations. Basically, it just sounds cooler. And I want to make a quick note about that. It's really common for people in the community to say, the dark sides are never mentioned by name before the reveal. This is blatantly untrue. In the very first episode, they say anxiety.
That's when the anxiety kicks in.
And while deceit wasn't said, they do talk about lying. I don't know how this idea became so widespread, but it's just flat out wrong. So other people really don't like to say wrath because Logan lists the 7 deadly sins at one point.
Consider some of the 7 deadly sins: greed, pride, envy, lust, wrath. 5 of the 7 deadly sins are committed in your head.
But I don't consider this enough evidence to disprove it. But also, like I just said, the specific word they use for him doesn't actually matter. And I'm going to be using rage specifically for a couple of reasons I'll explain shortly. I just wanted to clear up some common misinformation. So, what other evidence might we have to support this idea of him being rage? If you remember the score counter I mentioned earlier, that is a parody of Streets of Rage. Okay, honestly, that could just be a funny coincidence. I'm not going to rely on it for proof. However, what definitely isn't a coincidence is later in SVS Redux when there's this Final Fantasy parody. I've never played any Final Fantasy games, but based on what I can find, there isn't a move in it called Blinding Rage. So this was something that they chose to add in alongside other moves like dance and items like empty journals. Which, on an unrelated note, but real life, Thomas has made so many jokes about owning empty journals he doesn't write in throughout the years that I'm convinced that this has to be a genuine problem for him. Anyway, Blinding Rage used here feels a bit out of place compared to everything else, and people picked up on it pretty fast. It's likely a hint, and terms like this fit in really well with Again, something I'm going to bring up in a bit. Also, in this same section, Thomas uses a Mega Phoenix. This is a real item from the Final Fantasy games, so it could be nothing, but considering we know his emblem is a phoenix, it honestly could go either way. If it is a hint, I don't think it's worth getting too worked up about, but And finally, we have this clip from Learning New Things About Ourselves.
I wanted to communicate 5x5 that I'm 5x5.
It's okay, Roman, his intentions are there. I mean, who does going above and beyond with clarity hurt?
Going above and beyond. More like going overboard. It's stupid.
Ow! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! You hit me in the eye! You hit me in the eye, you freaking book germ!
Personally, I don't think this is anything, but it's so commonly brought up in the fandom that I felt like I should mention it anyway. The main thing people talk about is the orange lighting in the staircase. This could absolutely be a coincidence, and that's just how the lighting looks up there normally. But we do also know that real life Thomas has some colored lights that he's used up there before, so who's to say? We have Logan getting angry and throwing the crumpled up flashcard at Roman, and maybe the lighting on the second floor is orange. And alongside that, another common piece of evidence people like to use is from the 4th volume of the Incorrect Quotes videos, where Janice throws an orange stress ball at Roman and it hits him in the eye. This I consider to be even more of a coincidence than the orange lighting on the stairs. It's just a stress ball. Thomas probably already had it laying around and that's why he used it. It's, in my mind at least, not worth considering. Even though, yes, it does fit in with the previous clip and the Blinding Rage move from SVS Redux. In both cases, a character is upset and hits Roman in the eye with something, and the color orange happens to be on screen. Specifically, Roman keeps getting hit though, which I find kind of funny. Poor guy. Anyway, no, I don't like to think that this is important, but enough people in the fandom talk about it, I felt like I should bring it up just in case. My final piece of evidence for Orange being Rage comes from the character playlists, specifically the track The Breach from Logan's playlist. I'll bring up this track again when I talk about Orange and his potential relationship with Logan, but for now I'm going to present to you these lines. He's entering the codes and overriding has begun. Reading rage in the nervous system, nothing can be done. It seems to circumvent necessity of physical restraints. This is the main reason why I choose to use the term rage for Orange over others. It's specifically mentioned here. So we've got our evidence for Orange being rage, but what else is he? The sides don't only represent one thing, they're multifaceted for the lack of a better term. Janice is deceit, yes, but also self-preservation and desires. Remus is intrusive thought, repressed or forbidden creativity, and also encompasses a portion of Thomas's sense of humor.
Years I've roamed these empty halls. Why have a ballroom with no balls?
Nope, I'm an adult, so that's not funny.
Patton is morality, the bulk of Thomas's emotions, the other portion of Thomas's sense of humor, and seems to hold a lot of Thomas's memories. So Orange probably won't just be one thing. I must reluctantly admit though that this is mostly just going to be speculation as I don't have much evidence for these. This is less of a theory and more just me wanting to throw my thoughts out there. So when you think of anger, what are some of the things that immediately come to mind? Well, I can't read your minds or hear your responses, but for me at least I think of two things: justice and violence. I think Orange is likely going to represent Thomas's sense of justice and his capacity for violence. First, sense of justice. I do think justice, more specifically in the realm of revenge or karma. The only thing I have to support this idea is the rather old theory that Orange and Patton are going to be connected. You see, back in the day after Remus was introduced, people went back to why do we get out of bed in the morning, and noticed that during the family tree segment, Roman has one of those lines going off the screen which people think was meant to be a hint towards Remus. Then people noticed, hey, Patton has one of those too. Maybe Orange is going to be related to him somehow. We have the song Oranges on his character playlist, which strengthened this idea. Plus, justice and rage together invoke terms such as righteous anger, which, fun fact I guess, but Wikipedia says, in some Christian doctrines it is considered the only form of anger which is not sinful. According to these doctrines, an example of righteous anger would be when Jesus drove the moneylenders out of the temple. So there is that. Also, a side note, but there's a lot of people that think this connection is going to be that they're brothers. To that I have to say, no. It's very much like when Ford was introduced in Gravity Falls and people thought Bill Cipher was going to have his own secret twin brother. Like, guys, they're not going to do the exact same twist twice. I think he could still be splintered off from Patton during Thomas's development in some way, given that anger is an emotion and justice can be related to morality, but in this specific case isn't. But I don't think that they're going to be brothers like Remus and Roman. So yeah, that's that for sense of justice. What about Thomas's capacity for violence? This one I have even less evidence for, and I'm mostly just speculating. Rage and violence are often thought of as being related. Like, when you're pissed off about something, you might slam doors or punch your pillow. In extreme cases though, you might actually go and hurt another person. If you're fighting with someone and it gets intense enough, you might end up, like, for example, pushing each other. Or worse, obviously. Plus, we have to remember that Sandersides is telling a story, and typically these big final reveal characters are the big bads, the worst and most difficult foe the heroes have to face. One's capacity for violence is definitely something I can see. And okay, I wasn't going to bring this up originally because I don't actually have the clip to show you, but I'm going to talk about an old membership livestream from about 2019. You can find posts on Tumblr of people talking about this from back then, but apparently Joan confirmed some information about the pink mark on Janice's eye. I say apparently because I never saw this stream or a clip of this, but according to all the people who talked about it, according to Joan, the pink mark on Janice's eye is meant to be a scar. Janice getting the scar is apparently related to the next side, and that they weren't planning to reveal this in the show because it's, quote, too intense. Now, Orange being the one to give Janice the scar seems likely, just based off of what we know so far. It's unclear if this happening would have been an accident or not. Honestly, I think it could go either way. But if it's too intense to explain in the show, then I think it's most likely Orange did it on purpose with malicious intent. Also, from what we have on Orange so far, he does have fire theming. The Phoenix emblem and the fire patterns on the merch, Latania flowers having resistance to fire, the flames sound when his eyes flash on the screen at the end of working through intrusive thoughts, and the particles flying around the screen in the anime intro video, which to me look like they could be ash. Plus, the orange color is often associated with heat. So Orange definitely could possess some sort of pyrokinesis or have some other flame-related ability. I think Janice could have a burn scar specifically, and this honestly fits in with the violence idea. Orange not only being a potentially violent person who's willing to get physical, but can also leave permanent scarring on the other sides is kind of scary. Like, even Remus can't cause permanent damage. But again, since I don't have access to this livestream and I can't prove anything, I want you to take this with a grain of salt. The only reason I do bring this up is because of how many people in the fandom have talked about this before. And I do think it's a bit ridiculous to say that the 20 or so people who posted about the livestream back in the day are all lying for shits and giggles. I guess Orange is an eye for an eye kind of guy? Wait a minute. Also, if we return to Logan's character playlist in the track The Breach, we do have this line. The pulses of the cargo are still rising in endorphins that are often linked to violence or too critical to manage. So yeah, that's my theory on what Orange is going to represent within Thomas. Now, on to what is his relationship with Logan? There are a plethora of theories about this, and I'm going to attempt to go through as many as I can. 1. Logan is the Orange side. Be it that he's been hiding parts of himself from Thomas, or it's a Jekyll and Hyde situation. And to be clear, I'm talking about the Comics Mass Media iteration of Jekyll and Hyde, not the original book, because it's different, but I am not going to be getting into that right now. This doesn't make sense. To start, in Selfishness versus Selflessness, Virgil says about Janice, "Don't let him or any of his friends stick around that long ever again." The key word here is friends. Multiple other sides. It can't just be Remus. And if Logan was Orange, I find it unlikely that he would have his own emblem. it would more likely be an altered version of Logan's if there was one at all. Plus, Virgil in the show has no issues with Logan, and if Logan was secretly a fourth, and air quotes, dark side. Also, in the Inside Out 2 video, Logan says this.
Right, that's why you all had me portray anger, simply because we both wear neckties, and for no other reason.
This doesn't make sense if he is orange and orange is rage. He wouldn't say, and no other reason. He probably wouldn't be saying anything at all during this scene. Number 2. Logan is going to become the orange side in order to get Thomas to listen to him. I highly doubt Logan would do anything to intentionally harm Thomas, and Logan, more so than the other 4 main sides, know that good and bad are subjective, and him turning evil would, again, seem very out of character for him. Number 3. Orange is influencing Logan somehow to make him angrier. This is not impossible, however, I don't like it. It would invalidate Logan's feelings during this current arc, basically saying that all of his frustration with Thomas not accepting his help isn't real. Plus, why would he do this? We know that the sides can influence each other, as shown in Accepting Anxiety, but I don't really see why this would just be a Logan thing. If he could influence the others so easily, why wouldn't he also do it with Roman or Virgil or anyone else? So here we are now at my theory. I believe the orange side is less developed than the others. That he needs to basically possess another side in order to actually appear to Thomas. And Logan, being as frustrated as he is right now, is basically the best side for Orange to take control of. This would, 1, make him a bigger threat to Thomas if he can basically override his thoughts and emotions, which is not unlike how anger actually works, often being a cover-up for other feelings. 2, would explain why he only seems to really have a connection with Logan right now. 3, if this is the case, he could theoretically possess any of the sides and therefore could absolutely be hanging around with the others in order for things like Janice's scar to happen. And if he can possess anyone, it makes sense why Virgil and maybe even Janice wouldn't be uncomfortable around Logan. Of my evidence, well, to start, we've established that he has to be his own separate side from Logan. We do have his canon appearances, being the orange eyes, the 7th character select box, the Lantania flowers on the shirt, and the small line in the Trying Too Hard music video. The orange eyes being used in the anime video, alongside Remus and Janice, confirms to me that he is his own character, alongside, of course, the character select screen. The Lantania flower, representing severity, makes me think that he'll only appear in extreme situations, and therefore his appearances will be very limited. And the music video shot being on the word small makes me think that he could be underdeveloped in comparison to everyone else, and therefore his existence is, again, limited to certain situations. Going back to Logan's character playlist, The Breach describes some kind of situation where a group of people are being overcome with rage and need to be controlled. Okay, I don't know the context for this track, but the general concept does work with the idea of Orange being able to take over other sides. Also, we have the Phoenix emblem, which I'm now going to try to analyze more thoroughly. Phoenixes are often symbols of rebirth and reincarnation. They're reborn from their own destruction into a new bird. I basically think another side, like Logan, would need to be so consumed with their own anger and frustration that it destroys them, and Orange can then take over. The Lantania flower, also representing transformation and rebirth, works with this idea. Another thing that both Phoenixes and Lantanias have in common is their healing properties. Phoenixes are known to have their healing tears, and Lantanias have been used in medicine in the real world. My interpretation of this is that Orange, as Rage and Justice, could kind of be cathartic for somebody. Like I mentioned before, if you're pissed off and you punch your pillow, it makes you feel better, right? Okay, so I'm not the most eloquent person. I'm not sure how to word this better. That's just the association that my brain jumped to. I suppose you could also interpret it as when Thomas does finally accept Orange as a part of himself, he's healing from his flawed development? I don't know. That's all I really got on that. Anyway, his relationship with Logan. I honestly think it's situational. He doesn't have a direct connection to Logan specifically. Logan is just the side that's easiest for him to get to. I'd also like to bring up Remus. In working through Intrusive Thoughts, Remus seems really interested in Logan when his eyes flash orange. This is difficult to really analyze, but between that and him seemingly trying to coax Logan into getting angry in the gift exchange episode, he does want whatever is happening to happen. No, I am not including Janice's reaction here because he was drunk in that episode. Anyway, this could be an extension of Remus and Janice just wanting Thomas to be more honest with himself and not denying parts of himself anymore. Or it could have something to do with Remus's specific relationship to Orange. Like, I don't know, maybe you could make a connection between intrusive thoughts and rage, but I do feel like it's the former idea, so I'm not going to speculate too much. I want to also suggest a possibility that Orange showing up could happen because Thomas's relationship with Nico doesn't end well. In the 5-year anniversary video, Thomas asks,
What do you think is next for us?
and Janice says,
Oh, who's to say? Heartbreak? Betrayal? You won't be bored, I can tell you that.
this could just be Janice being pessimistic, but I think it's also possible that this is foreshadowing. Maybe Nico cheats on Thomas, or something else equal to that happens. I mean, think about it. Thomas values his relationships greatly. It could be the perfect situation to drag Orange out. Thomas's sense of justice and his fury would obviously kick in if this guy, who is literally handcrafted by the writers to be his perfect match, were to do something like cheat on him. Hasn't he gone through enough already? When is he finally going to get something he wants? Everything is already going wrong in his life. Can't the universe just give him this one thing? He deserves it. Doesn't he? Just a guess though. So on to the next section. What is his name? Let's start with what it's definitely not. Marcus. It's pretty much universally agreed that the name can be Marcus because of this clip of Virgil in a bloopers video.
On a new spider, bringing him home, calling him Marcus.
This would be really weird if his name was Marcus, because imagine if, for example, Virgil had said, I found a spider, I'm going to take him home and name him Janice. That would just be weird. So yeah, for that reason, it's basically universally agreed by the fandom that his name will not be Marcus. Unless Tom is playing like 4-dimensional chess with us or something and just like put that in intentionally to fuck with us. Now, onto a few names that I think it possibly could be. Before we get into it, I want to set up the sort of rules, I suppose, that I have in place for this. One, I believe the name is going to be a name that somebody in today's day and age would realistically have. Like, Janice and Virgil are weird and definitely old sounding names, but if you were to meet a random person on the street today that had those names, you would most likely come to the conclusion that it's some kind of like family name or something. It's not out of the question for somebody to be named those, so I think Orange's name is going to be like that. 2, the name will most likely end in US or a similar kind of slant rhyme. Remus and Janice both match this, and while Virgil doesn't, there is the theory that Virgil is not his real name. But I'm not going to get into that right now. We know Roman, Logan, and Patton are all meant to have similar sounding names with the same type of rhymes because it's, you know, brought up in the actual show itself. Therefore, the audience is meant to pick up on it and make connections between the slant rhymes and the characters' names and, like, what their roles or alignments or whatever you want to call it is within Thomas's mind. But because we don't have any concrete evidence about the names rhyming, I don't think it's impossible for his name to not end with US. And that's it. Onto the names. Starting with Brutus. I got this name from Marcus Junius Brutus, one of the guys who decided they were just gonna like fucking stab Caesar. I also think it sounds similar to brutal or brutality, and that would work with the general ideas I have so far for Orange. I think that there's a slim possibility, but it's relatively unlikely. Next, Pluto. Okay, totally honest, the only reason this name is on this list because I had a dream about Orange once, and his name in the dream was Pluto. I do think the idea that he is a small, underdeveloped side could work, given that Pluto is a very small and insignificant planet. Small enough that it is widely considered by many to not be a planet at all. Symbolically, I do think that the name could work. However, the main problem with this name is that it does not match the slant rhymes. But there is a chance of Remus's and Janice's names rhyming just being a coincidence, and that's why I put Pluto on this list. And thirdly, the name that I am actually fully convinced on, Cronus. No, I'm not the first person to suggest Cronus. However, I have never seen anybody suggest Cronus for the reasons I'm about to list. Basically, this is a different equation, same answer kind of situation. To start with the basic information that everybody knows, Cronus was the youngest of the first generation of Titans and patron of the harvest. Also, this is definitely just a coincidence, but the color orange does often have associations with harvest. Just a little fact for you. Anyway, Cronus is related to Kronos, which is the personification of time and also a literal word meaning the passage of time. Kronos is related to Keros, and what is Keros, you might be asking? Well, Keros is the lesser known fourth mode of persuasion. That's right, baby! I tied the name to Ethos, Logos, and Pathos without making it Ethan! Yeah, anyway, it also might be a fun fact to let you know that Cronus was one of the 3 names that they were considering when naming Pluto. Also, Cronus is the Greek equivalent to the Roman god Saturn, who fathered Pluto, and it may be worth noting that Saturn and Janus reigned together at one point. Anyway, I'm not going to go any deeper into this. It's almost 5 in the morning when I'm writing this script, so... What is his character type? The sides in the show all seem to embody certain common stock character types, or stereotypes. Logan is a typical nerd, Roman is a heroic prince, Remus and Janus are 2 variations of the all-too-common queer-coded villain, etc. It would make sense that Orange would also adopt one. And now, first, I would like to suggest that he might not actually have one. If he does indeed need to possess another side, it's possible he'll just look like the side but with orange eyes. The character select box, the orange eyes, and the small clip where Thomas isn't in a different costume are all evidence I have for this idea, but of course, it's also just likely that it's because they didn't want to reveal him yet. Also, I doubt they're going to miss the opportunity to make merch of this guy, like, come on. So even though this is just speculation, I thought it would be fun. So I'm going to start with one that I personally believe in, and what is also probably the most common idea I see for him online. The mainstream media punk. You know, leather, spikes, and metal music. What normies typically think of when they think of punk. I think this works both for the aesthetic of the character needing to be intimidating and viewed as more threatening than the others, but also when you think of violence, rage, and justice, the popular image that might pop into your head is an angry punk participating in violent protest. This sort of stereotype feels to me, and several others in the fandom, like something that they would actually do for a character. The only thing that might conflict with this is that Remus already has some extremely light punk theming, specifically in his character playlist, but this is less stereotypical and not really what you find for the common character archetype. Like I said, you probably think more along the lines of metal and rock music over like Days and Days. So that's what I think. But for fun, let's discuss some other ones I've seen floating around. 1. Cowboy. This is usually a joke and I highly doubt anyone actually believes it genuinely. It's a bit too silly of an idea for me. It wouldn't be intimidating enough for this setting. 2. Gamer. Again, really silly. I can see this happening if they didn't want Orange to be intimidating, like I can picture them doing a character based on the angry gamer throwing his controller at the TV and yelling slurs into the mic stereotype. But I don't think this would be a good idea. Everything we know about Orange so far is setting him up to be the big bad, and this wouldn't work well with that kind of character. 3. Sloppy Uncle. This one I saw around in the earlier days of Orange theorizing and OCs because people thought he was going to be related to Patton. I basically already explained why I don't think they'll be brothers, and also this just wouldn't make a very good villain character in my opinion. 4. I don't have a simple way to describe this, just that he's cunning, charismatic, and suit wearing. Well, no, actually I do. That's just like a Tumblr sexy man. I've seen this one almost as much as the punk idea. A lot of people who make Orange Side OCs go this route for him, and I get it. There's a lot of final villains in media that are like this. But honestly, I feel like Janus already fills that role. Like, yeah, he's not wearing an actual suit most of the time, but his personality and demeanor is what you usually think of with those kinds of characters. So basically, I don't think this one works because it's too similar to Janus. And that's all I have on his stock type. Now, I want to use this final segment of the video to discuss 2 ideas I didn't have any place else to squeeze in. Number 1, the 3 wise monkeys. So a lot of people like to try to fit the dark sides in with the three wise monkeys. Speak no evil, see no evil, hear no evil. It's basically about trying to avoid evil thoughts and deeds. I'll be honest, I feel like it's super easy to reference this accidentally, and I'm not very convinced it's not just coincidence. The main reason a lot of people think this is a thing is because in Moving On, one of the images in Patton's picture frame is Thomas doing the poses. But this is an image that's been on his Instagram for years, so. If it was true though, what side would be what? Well, I mean, obviously Janus would be speak no evil. Deception is a very verbal thing, and he also literally has the power to stop the other sides from speaking. Based on the eye imagery, we could assume Orange is see no evil, which would leave Remus with hear no evil. I mean, I guess you could make a connection between it and Thomas not listening to Remus. And Remus does rip his ears off in his first appearance, but I don't know. Then we have Virgil. You might be thinking he can't fit into this if true, because there are only 3 monkeys. But you'd actually be wrong, because there is in fact a 4th, lesser known monkey called Do No Evil, or Smell No Evil, but from what I gather this is just used as a more child-friendly version of it. Anyway, Virgil could be Do No Evil. The symbolism of Virgil being separated from the other sides and the 4th monkey being considerably less known could work. And I suppose you could say anxiety prevents you from doing things, but Virgil also has the ability to blind other sides with his shadowy powers, which could make him see no evil, and maybe Orange is Do No Evil because he's less developed? Or maybe Remus is Do No Evil and Virgil is here? You see what I mean when I say I think this is just a coincidence? Without concrete confirmation, I don't think they're meant to reference this. The dark sides and the light sides are opposites of each other. Okay, so to start, light sides isn't a thing. This is an entirely fan-made concept that's gotten way too out of hand. And the dark sides is literally just a name. It doesn't actually give you anything. And the entire point of the series is that good and bad are subjective, and it's unpacking Thomas's view of himself that developed from his upbringing, and it's about self-acceptance, and dividing the characters that way would just spit in the face of all of that. Then, the idea of the sides being opposites of each other. To start, there is 0 evidence for this. The only characters who have this kind of duality are Roman and Remus, but even then, they're not opposites of each other. They're more like 2 sides of the same coin, or a splintering of each other. A really common thing I see people bring up is that Janus and Patton are opposites, because lying is the opposite of morality. And to that, I say, no, it's not. What the fuck? Again, these are subjective, and even if you wanted to go with the idea that they're opposites because light blue and yellow are opposites of each other on the color wheel, no, they're not. On a normal color wheel, by everyone's logic, Roman would be Patton's opposite. And even if you want to use the one on the poster, like a lot of people do, they're still not opposites. I've seen so many people make lines that look like this because they have this like bizarre confirmation bias for this idea. But back to Orange. A lot of people think that because blue and orange are opposites on the color wheel, that Orange has to be opposing Logan in some way. And I feel like I already explained why that's not true. And even if you don't worry about the color wheel stuff and just go off of what the character represents, Orange wouldn't be Logan's opposite. Patton would. Logos and pathos, heart and mind, logic and emotions. They even have matching emblems, for fuck's sake. So yeah, this entire idea is just dumb, and when I see people make theories utilizing this, I just skip the bust. And that's it. In the future, if I have more evidence for or against something in this video, then I'll make a follow-up video. But beyond that, I do have a few other synthesized theories I'm planning to discuss, and maybe even some analysis videos. We'll see. Anyway, thank you for watching, and if you've come out of this video not convinced, then I at least hope you found it entertaining.